man, I love Spider-Man. I would say that I'm a pretty big fan of the guy. I have all the games. I've watched the film so many times that my CDs look like this. If there is a Spider-Man fan club, I'm the guy that brings the pizza. Because of my fascination with this character, I believe I've noticed something about his films that not a lot of people talk about, really, if ever. It's an aspect of these movies that I think is extremely important, yet I feel is vastly overlooked. And who knows, maybe you noticed it too. You see, in my opinion, as someone who doesn't read the Spider-Man comics, I think that Spider-Man's fight scenes, specifically the final battles, have had a drop-off in action choreography. I know, that's a pretty ridiculous sounding statement, and I feel kind of bad saying it, because I love the character, and I know that not everyone is into action as much as I am. But to me, the action is what I really look forward to when watching a Spider-Man movie. In fact, fight sequences are what I love the most about filmmaking. Understanding how an action sequence works and the technical side of it is what got me into movies. Obviously, you can make a good film without a fight scene, and I'm willing to bet that one day we're gonna get a mainstream superhero movie that has absolutely no action in it and is purely centered around the characters. But if you are going to make a fight scene, then I believe it should be executed in the best way possible. You see, a really good fight scene, especially in a superhero movie, can make or break a film. Because at least if the movie sucks, and the writing sucks, a good fight scene will get your heart pumping, and will leave you with memorable visuals when you're thinking of the film. There truly is nothing more satisfying than watching a climactic final battle after the movie has built up its tension to its highest possible point. And at the end of the day, who doesn't love a movie where people just beat the absolute shit out of each other? I remember as a kid feeling a little weird about the final fight in Spider-Man 3, like for some reason I couldn't remember what actually happened in it, even after watching the movie for a second time the next day. If we look at this fight scene, they fight. Kinda, but it's very segmented throughout the entire sequence. So the pacing of the fight feels very start and stop. In one moment, Spider-Man is getting thrown through a vehicle. He's already all battle damaged up, but wait, Eddie's got some complaints.
Do you remember what you did to me?
Alright, the stage is set. The fight has officially begun. Nope, Spider-Man's gotta catch his breath. Hold on. Alright, 2 versus 2. The fight is on. But take a look at this guy for a sec. Obviously, these are pretty important moments in the context of the battle. I'm not a dummy. I get why these moments are put in there. They add a bit of tension and show character, like by providing more motivation from Eddie, who is kerfuffled, or by showing us that tiny bit of reconciliation from MJ and Peter after kissing another woman.
Go ahead, lay one on me.
Really?
But nonetheless, the battle definitely suffers because of its halted pacing, unlike, say, the train fight, which has a very clear streamline of events, so it feels like a roller coaster ride, short and sweet, whereas Spider-Man 3 is more like being on a really nice train. Off the top of my head, I can pretty easily lay out how the train fight goes. They start fighting on the clock tower, they get knocked off the clock tower, they fight on the train for a bit, they beat up the conductor, Spider-Man stops the train. That's the sequence. But off the top of your head, what happens in Spider-Man 3? Like, I remember one day I was revisiting all the fight scenes in preparation for Homecoming, and I thought to myself, why isn't this fight scene more memorable than it should be? Spider-Man is literally fighting Venom. Why don't I get the same feeling of excitement as I do when I think of the new Goblin fight, or really any other action scene in this movie? But then it hit me. The final battle was not really about the fight. Most of the fight is about evading the enemy and saving MJ. I mean, there is still some cool moments in the scene, especially when the amazing score is blaring. As a sequence, this is a well-executed scene, but it's not a consistent fight, like it was between Peter and Sandman, both times. In those fight scenes, it strictly focuses on the combat between two opponents, but this scene loses that aspect by kind of kicking Sandman to the sidelines. I don't think they should have turned him into a giant monster. I think a more personal battle would have made way more sense. I mean, after all, Sandman is responsible for the movie's plot. I'm willing to bet that this 2-minute long fight scene is far more memorable than Sandman being big, and I'll even go as far as to say that if Venom had an actual one-on-one fight with Spider-Man, he'd be at least a little more fondly remembered, but because he didn't, he just feels tacked onto the movie, even though creatively he should have had more to do. I mean, Venom on paper seems like he would fit perfectly into the Raimi universe when it comes to fights. Up until this point, literally every tussle has been brutal and extremely physical, yet all he does is pop in out of nowhere every few minutes just to hit Spider-Man over the head like an asshole. I used to hear a lot of complaints about the fight scenes when people would review this movie, saying they didn't really fight or there were hardly any punches thrown. And looking back on The Amazing Spider-Man, I have to disagree. You see, the Lizard is actually pretty strong, like way more than we give him credit for. Yes, there is a lot of dodging and weaving, but in this movie, whenever he comes into contact with Peter, he throws him around like a rag doll. There's a clear difference in strength, so it makes sense that Spider-Man can't just face him head on. That's why when he has to, it makes the fights feel more engaging. The sewer sequence, when the Lizard is effortlessly digging into Spider-Man's chest with his knife, has always been a pretty memorable moment. I like the school fight and how the Lizard just manhandles him throughout the hallway. Even if Peter isn't fighting by doing consecutive air combos, the fact that he feels like a force to be reckoned with, the Lizard, makes the fight engaging. Could the fights have been a little bit more physical? Sure, but on the opposite end, we have a problem. See, when you're a villain like Electro, a light man, it doesn't really make sense to have a fight with anyone, because you could just blast them with electricity. And that's the problem. Blasting people with electricity is boring. In these kinds of movies, making your villain the laser guy means the fight will be delegated to just jumping around, and I don't like it. Electro should have been a more physical villain. Every time Electro had his hands on Spider-Man did the fight actually feel interesting. When he's not doing cool stuff like this, he's just another guy shooting lasers. That's why I wasn't too much of a fan of the Times Square scene. The stair part was cool though. This is the highlight of the scene, which is why I don't consider this to be a real fight. And I get it, he uses electricity. What do you expect? But let me spin it to you this way. The villain of Daredevil Season 3 was Bullseye. And even though Bullseye's power is literally throwing stuff, the choreographers still managed to make their fights feel physical. Daredevil isn't doing Power Ranger flips every 30 seconds to get to the button. Now, to the people disagreeing, I get it. I'm not faulting anyone for liking the fight. It flat out looks cool, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't even like it. In fact, I used to not like it, but it's grown on me. I love the music, I like the slow-mo, yet I still have the exact same issue I had with Spider-Man 3. It becomes not really about the fight and more about the epicness of the scene, which is like what the Batman movies do. I don't know what they're doing. And because of that, the music and sound design is what carries the scene. It has to. One last little thing I want to mention that bothers me. In this fight, the physical consequences don't really feel evident. Spider-Man is literally getting blasted with 1,000,000 volts of electricity, but he looks like he just has to take his suit to the cleaners. I don't know about you, but battle damage to me is synonymous with Spider-Man. He should look beat up at the end of the movie. It shows how much effort was required to blow up the villain. Oh, here comes the 10th guy in a row to make fun of Homecoming. No, I like the characters and the jokes of Homecoming. Tom Holland's performance is fantastic. Some would say incredible. The Vulture is honestly one of the best villains of the MCU. I really couldn't believe that within a span of 5 minutes, you're already sympathizing with the villain.
Look, I bought trucks for this job. I brought in a whole new crew. These guys have a family.
If you have a grievance, you may take it up with my superiors.
Who the hell are they?
The joint venture between Stark Industries and the federal government.
And we knew Tony Stark for like 10 years, which is why it is a shame that this villain was wasted by having the most unengaging action sequences you can have in a Spider-Man movie. This film unfortunately suffers from literally every issue we just talked about. Spider-Man encounters the Vulture 4 times, and they don't really lay a finger on each other till the very end of the film. The movie treats Vulture and Spider-Man like opposite magnets. Every time you think they're gonna fight, they don't. I feel like if it wasn't for the massive set pieces, like with the boat scene, the fighting would be completely forgettable. It wouldn't be memorable whatsoever. I mean, like, when people talk about the boat scene, they talk about Spider-Man saving everybody, him holding it together. No one ever says, man, that part when they were pulling, that was really riveting. Because the build-up to that moment just isn't that memorable. The fight completely lacks impact and feels directionless. I never got the point of this part of the fight. Like, you expect him to do some sort of web strike, but instead he just awkwardly swings back and forth with the music treating it like some cool move just happened. The final battle also feels like it's using its set pieces as a crutch. You expect them to have this massive fight in the air, but they don't actually fight till they're on the ground. That 1 minute battle is the real fight. The plane sequence is just Spider-Man letting go of the plane and falling backwards, which really isn't all that satisfying, especially when you're using one of two very prominent aviation characters in your fight. Of course, most of their encounters involve either jumping around or randomly shooting lasers everywhere. It's very uninspired and not very entertaining on a rewatch. Overall, the action of Homecoming just seems to blend in together. Nothing really seems to stand out action-wise, unless you're strictly talking about the set piece itself. I guess that's not entirely true. I mean, I do like the beach battle. It looks practical. I like how the Vulture uses his talons on him. I just wish they stopped taking off his mask, because he looks like he's in pajamas, and I want to see Spider-Man in the battle, not the actor. I hate this final battle. I don't mind the bridge sequence itself. It is a good scene. I understand that is a complete contradiction to what I just said 5 seconds ago, but you gotta understand that making drones the climax of your film, especially in a Spider-Man movie, is very underwhelming. Again, this scene on its own is fun, and I don't even care that Spider-Man was bulletproof or that he built his suit using magic or whatever. I just don't like how it was used as the final battle. This feels like what the Night Monkey sequence should have been. I especially don't like how Mysterio only does Mysterio stuff before the final battle. I mean, he has Peter confined in a tube, and the guy whose entire shtick is making creative illusions uses bullets. Those giant hallucinations aren't any better. The moment I learned they were pre-programmed illusions on a set path, all tension and excitement just left those scenes. Was the Mysterio sequence cool? Yes, it was. But I'm not going to act like it was the best scene in the universe simply because there were illusions. Oh, so what? Yeah, it looks cool, but after you watch it once, it loses its magic. I think saving this scene till the end and having Peter actually battle Mysterio with his illusions would have been a far more entertaining and way better use of the villain. I mean, right after the illusion sequence, I was like, man, I wonder what he's going to come up with next. Surely something creative. Okay, so I actually just have one little problem with this final battle.
Where's the fighting?
I'm going to say this off the bat. There were some cool parts, but not enough to save the sequence. I have my grievances with some of the battles of the other Spider-Man movies, sure, but there is still a sizable amount of fights that still hold up well. I'm always going to feel excited to watch the bank fight, or the train fight, or even the fight on Oscorp Tower. These sequences feel like a treat for watching the movie. I feel tension when I watch these scenes, but how can I feel any sense of tension when Sandman is just blowing himself everywhere, but only decides to show up when the movie remembers him? I don't get teasing the audience with such a cool scene just to have the camera make a beeline towards the ground away from the action. Even if you didn't tease the scene in the trailer, this would have been an excellent opportunity to showcase how each Spider-Man handles each villain differently. And aren't final battles supposed to have that hold the line moment anyways? This is why I feel comfortable saying that the apartment fight was the best fight scene, and I think most of you will agree. It's violent, they're smashing through walls and floors and shit. It's sick. This is what a Spider-Man fight scene should feel like, brutal and personal. But the construction fight, just like Spider-Man 3, isn't about the fight. It's about the overall event. It's got cool little moments, but little moments do not always make big moments. Well, Electro. He shoots lasers. There was this part when Spider-Man was swinging and he hit him in the face with an electric bolt. That was pretty cool. Alright, his most physical interaction with Andrew Spider-Man is just a scene ripped almost to a T from the previous movie. And while I understand it's a homage to the other movies, if that's the most interesting thing he's gonna do, I'd rather see something new. Also, he doesn't even get defeated by the Spider-Man. Doc Ock just like turns him off.
There you go.
Even though he could have just electrocuted him. Doc Ock. What did you expect? A fight? Next, Sandman. He becomes big again. He grabs Spider-Man and he says,
I know light, Spider-Man.
he covers Spider-Man in sand. Okay, Lizard's great. He's the most physical villain of the movie. In fact, he's the only villain to fight each Spider-Man. You strip away the fact that there's 3 Spider-Man in it, and this is just an alright, okay Disney Channel battle that doesn't offer anything creative or new. Maybe that swinging scene instead could have been a part where they fight each villain at the same time, doing a sort of unified Spider-Man Ultimate combo, which is what I thought they were gonna do when they said that statement out loud, but no, it does not play out how you think.
It's not important. All we gotta do is focus, trust your tingle, and coordinate our attacks, okay?
Yes. Okay. Let's pick one target.
Right.
And we take them off the board one at a time.
Now you got it.
The only time they work together, they jump around and get shot by lasers. This isn't satisfying to watch. What even happened here? This is how 3 Spider-Men fight Electro, one of the coolest villains ever. They just shoot some web at his hands and then he blasts them. Oh, how creative. How do they take out Sandman? They throw a device at him. Okay. How did they take out the Lizard? He bites into the cure after chasing just one Spider-Man. Fine. How did they take out Electro? You watch the trailer, you watch the movie, and right before the fight you start thinking, yeah, this is gonna be insane. How could this not possibly be the most violent and entertaining Spider-Man battle in existence? You start picturing so many cool ideas of how awesome the fight is gonna be in your brain, but you go and watch it, and it's like being flashbanged with information. Oh my goodness, 3 Spider-Men? Oh my goodness. Wow. Whoa. But like this battle, right? It has no substance. It's a collage of scenes. Things happen, but they don't stand out. Everyone talks about the banter scene before the fight. Everyone talks about the swinging part. Everyone talks about the shield fight and Spider-Man stopping the glider. But no one talks about the fight itself, because it's actually a pretty boring fight, which also completely fails to deliver on a unique Spider-Man experience that'll never happen again. There isn't any part of the fight where I'm like, man, this is getting crazy. No, the entire time I'm waiting for it to get crazy. Spider-Man getting thrown at a pole, doing some kicks, and then doing a little headbutt is not all that satisfying to rewatch once you've seen it a few times. It's just like, this is the most you could come up with after waiting like 20 years to see these Spider-Man back on screen. It is undeniable that one aspect that has been utterly lost from the previous movies is how the fights used to feel like fights, you know, like they were engaging. There was this sense of creative brutality. When they fight, it's like 2 people with superpowers are just brawling. But with these newer movies, the action just feels so flat and sanitized, like they're afraid to do something violent, which is really weird because the previous fights of this movie were like really violent and really cool. There's a lot of people out there, fans, who make the most top-notch Spider-Man animations ever. They're so fun to look at and they just ooze with creativity. And it's like, why is this filling the void of cool Spider-Man fight scenes? Why have I watched Spider-Man vs. Venom stop-motion animation 13 more than the Hydro Man sequence in Far From Home? I think studios just assume that the action element is no different than a special effect to be added or removed in post. I wish the action in these films was treated with the respect it deserves. I wish I didn't have such a negative view of these movies, but how can I not when what is usually my favorite part of these films sucks? I used to think I didn't like these movies because a billionaire made the suit, or because the villains were Iron Man villains first, technically. No! The reason I don't feel that sense of excitement when I watch these movies is simple. They're not exciting films. And that's what I want to feel when I watch a Spider-Man movie. I want to feel excited to get to that one part again because it's so cool. But these movies don't really have the exciting part anymore. There are only so many times I can watch MJ throw bread at Peter's head and see Tobey Maguire do his little hand wave before I start to think to myself, man, I really want to watch those old Spider-Man movies.